Glacial depositional features are things in a landscape that have been built by sediment accumulation as a glacier melts. So here we're typically looking at the lowlands out away from the mountain where the temperature as you come to lower latitudes has increased and the ice begins to melt away. The images on the sheets in this video were either put into the public domain by the person who photographed them and do not require a credit to be given, or those that the licensing does require a credit. You will see it at the bottom of each page where that is required. The first glacial depositional feature that we are looking at is a drumlin. A drumlin is an elongate hill that has a shallow side pointing the direction the ice was flowing to. So in the picture we're looking at the drumlin from the side. You can see the steep side over here and the shallow elongated side over here. So if we were standing where the person took this photograph, we would know that the ice came from this side and it flowed in this direction because it pushes the drumlin, so it makes this side very steep, and then when it goes over the top it pulls out the drumlin hill shape, pointing the direction, which in this case is this way, that the glacier was flowing in the past. The next depositional feature we have is called an esker. An esker is a sinuous hill of sediment that represents a meltwater channel. So in the past, think of this area being covered with a thick ice mass, a glacier. The glacier is melting, and along the bottom of the glacier there's a meltwater channel that's coming out and feeding the water out from the glacier. This esker is sediment that has filled in that meltwater channel. So when it was ice, this would sort of be like an opening that meltwater would come through in the warm periods and then refreeze in the cold period. And as temperature and climate warmed, the ice retreated away, and the esker is the remnant of that meltwater channel that had once been below the glacier. The next depositional feature that we have is called a kame. A kame is a short hill of sediment that has been dropped by a melting glacier. So when we look in this landscape, we can see small hills in the picture. A lot of them have trees on top of them. Those are bits of sediment that had typically accumulated on top of the glacier, may also have been underneath, but as the ice melts away, it drops that sediment into a pile that makes a short hill that we call a kame. The next depositional feature is called a kettle lake. A kettle lake is a depression that often gets filled with water, so sometimes they're just called kettles when they're dry. The lake is when they're filled with water. The depression is formed by a piece of ice breaking off of a retreating glacier. It gets wedged in the ground. So where this lake is, there was a piece of glacial ice wedged in the ground. As the glacier retreats away, it continues to have meltwater coming off it, so sediment is still being brought to the region. The sediment builds up around the piece of ice. When the ice melts away, that's what leaves the depression that often then gets filled with water for our kettles or kettle lakes when they are filled with water. The last depositional feature we have are moraines. There are actually several different types of moraines, but we're going to simplify the definition to a moraine being a long, large hill of sediment that can form in multiple places along a glacier. So you can have lateral moraines, so you see the glacial valley here. You can have lateral moraines that form along the sides of the glacial valley. You can have medial moraines that form where two glaciers had come together and were flowing kind of as one glacier through a bigger valley. Or you can have terminal moraines, like the one that we see here, that form out in front of a glacier. So a glacier is advancing during a cold period. The terminus is moving further and further out. Eventually, the terminus stabilizes with the climactic conditions. The glacier is continually flowing forward, but it's flowing forward at the same rate that it is melting at the terminus. So the terminus, or the end of the glacier, looks like it's standing still, even though new ice is coming and continually melting. Because new ice is continually coming and melting at the same location, you get this large hill of sediment that builds up at the terminus of the glacier for a terminal moraine. These are some of, not all of, but some of the glacial depositional features that you should be familiar with for an introductory geology lab.